Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
It was the year 1986, on April 25th. At the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine, the night shift was about to begin. This big plant was built near a town called Pripyat, where many of the workers lived. Engineer Alexander Yushchenko came to the plant to start his work for the night. The feeling among the workers was good. It was a nice, clear night after a sunny day. People were looking forward to the May Day holiday coming up in a few days. Alexander's wife, Natasha, was at their home in Pripyat with their young son, Kirill. Their family life was good. Natasha had some small worries about the safety of the nuclear plant where her husband worked. But her fears became less recently. She had heard a government official on television say that nuclear accidents, big ones like meltdowns, simply did not happen. He said perhaps such a big accident might happen only once in 10,000 years. This official statement helped Natasha. That night, a special safety test was planned for reactor number 4 at the plant. This test was important. It was designed to see if the plant could still make some electricity for a short time if the main power was suddenly cut off. This power was needed to keep the cooling pumps working until the backup diesel generators could start fully. They had tried this specific test several times before, in 1982, 1984, and 1985. Each time, the test did not go as planned or did not work correctly. The managers were under pressure and really wanted this attempt to be successful. For this test, they had already lowered the power of reactor number 4 to about 25% of its normal level. Also, a very important safety system for cooling the reactor was turned off on purpose. This was done so the test could run without this safety system automatically stopping it. Another problem was that some of the workers who were starting the night shift were not fully told about the test and its details. The test was originally planned for the day shift, but it was delayed because the plant was needed to produce electricity for the power grid. So, as the night began, everything seemed calm on the surface. The workers were doing their jobs, preparing for the test. There was a feeling of routine, not danger. But this quiet night was just before a terrible event would happen. The mood was calm, but it was indeed the calm before a storm that would change everything. The bad test. The reason for this safety test was important. The plant needed to check what happened if the main power stopped suddenly. They wanted to see if the slowing machines, called turbines, could make power for the water pumps. These pumps pushed cool water into the reactor. This cool water was needed until the backup power machines, called generators, started fully. It took about 1 minute for the generators to be ready. They tried this test before in 1982, 1984, and 1985. Each time, the test did not work well. the people in charge in Moscow were not happy. They wanted this test to be successful. For the test, the reactor was made to run at low power. It was only at about 25% of its normal power. Also, a very important safety system was turned off. This system was for cooling the reactor in an emergency. It was turned off so it would not stop the test. Some workers on the night shift did not know much about the test. The test was first planned for the day when different workers were there. Because of a power problem at another plant, Chernobyl had to run at full power all day. So, the test was moved to the night. Nuclear power makes electricity. Inside the big machine, the reactor, small parts of metal called uranium split apart. This makes heat. The heat turns water into steam. The steam turns big wheels, turbines, and the wheels make electricity. Rods made of special material can go into the machine to slow down this splitting process. They are called control rods. On this night, the reactor power went down too much. It was lower than it should be. The workers tried to make the power go up, but something was wrong. The power did not go up easily. This was because of a substance called xenon built up in the reactor when the power was low. This xenon made it harder to increase power. To fight the xenon, the workers took out many control rods. They took out 200 of the 206 rods. Taking out so many rods was very dangerous and against the safety rules. The shift supervisor, Anatoly Dyatlov, was there and wanted the test to continue. They made risky choices to try and get the power right for the test. 3. The Big Bang. The test was running. The reactor was not steady. It was 1:24 in the morning. Suddenly, the power inside the reactor went up very, very fast. It was much too high. This was very dangerous. Someone pushed a special button. This button was supposed to stop everything quickly. It was called the Emergency Stop Button, AZ5. But pressing this button made things worse. There was a problem with how the reactor was made. The parts that went into the reactor had a tip that made the power go up first, not down. As many of these parts went in together, the power jumped even higher. The people in the control room did not know about this problem. They thought the button would make things safe. The reactor's power was now 10 times higher than normal. Then a very loud noise, like a big bomb. Bang! It was the first explosion. The force was so strong. The heavy top of the reactor, which weighed about 10,000 tons, was pushed up. It went straight through the roof of the building. Bits of the reactor and hot fuel flew everywhere. Soon after the first blast, there was another big explosion. This second one was likely from gas building up inside. More parts of the building broke. Radioactive material was sent high into the air. Fires started in different places. The middle part of the reactor was now open to the sky. Deadly air and dust went out into the atmosphere. It was a terrible sight, but at first most workers did not understand how bad it was. Reactors were not supposed to explode like this. Many people inside the plant thought something else had happened. Alexander Yevchenko and others had a first thought. It was a war. They thought the United States of America had attacked them. It was hard to believe the reactor itself was the reason for such destruction. 4. The first bad hours. After the loud noise, Alexander Yevchenko felt the building shake. He was in shock. His first thought was that this was a war, an attack from the USA. Everything around him was broken or falling down. He started to look for people near the explosion. He went through dark areas. He heard a loud sound like air escaping. He found his friend, but his face looked very bad. Alexander knew him only by his voice. His friend said more people were hurt. Alexander then saw Yuri Tregub. Yuri said Anatoly Dyatlov wanted water to cool the reactor. Dyatlov still did not know the reactor was gone. Alexander and others tried to get to the water pipes. They walked in water that was deep. Through a door, they saw the large water tanks were destroyed. Alexander looked up where the roof should be. He saw a light going up into the sky. It was bright and looked strange but beautiful. He did not know it was deadly radiation. For a few seconds, he just watched. Then another worker, who understood the danger, quickly pulled him away. This likely saved Alexander's life. Alexander went to Control Room 4. There he met 3 other men. Dyatlov had told them to go into the reactor and push the control rods down by hand. Alexander told them, "There is no reactor hall. The reactor blew up. There are no control rods. There is nothing left but space." The men did not believe him. Reactors do not just explode, they thought. Alexander said he had seen the damage from below. The men said they needed to see it from higher up. The 4 of them went to the upper floor near the reactor. This trip was very dangerous for them. Alexander held a door open for his friends. This was why he lived and the other 3 men died later. When his friends came back, they agreed with Alexander. They said the place where the reactor was now looked like a large hole, like a volcano. They had a device to read radiation levels, a dosimeter. The needle on the device went off the scale. But they still did not know how truly bad the radiation was. Nobody had ever seen levels so high. Soon after, the firefighters arrived. They came quickly to stop the fires in different places. But they did not know about the terrible radiation. They did not wear special clothes to protect them. Some of these brave men would die very soon because of this. In the town of Pripyat, most people were sleeping, but a few people were outside. They looked at the glowing light in the sky. They thought it looked interesting or beautiful. They did not know it was deadly radiation from the destroyed reactor. Later, stories were told in other countries about people watching from a bridge and all of them dying. People called it the Bridge of Death. But most of these stories were not true. Most people in Pripyat were at home, asleep, and did not see the light. 5. Sickness and secrets. Radiation is very bad for the human body. It can damage cells inside you and stop your body from working right. It can make people very sick quickly. There is a sad story about Lyudmila Ignatenko and her husband Vasily. Vasily was a firefighter who went to the plant right after the explosion. He got a very high amount of radiation. His skin became very bad, with boils and open areas. It was very painful. He got sicker and sicker and could not fight off problems. He died not long after. Lyudmila visited him, even though it was dangerous. She was going to have a baby. The baby was born later, but sadly died after a few hours. This was a very sad time for many families. Many people who were close to the plant also got very sick. Some had terrible burns on their skin that looked black. They were sick to their stomachs. Their bodies could not fight sickness anymore. Many of these brave people died in pain. At first, people did not know much about radiation. There were wrong ideas. Some people thought you could catch radiation from a person, like a cold, even if they were clean. They were afraid of the survivors. People did not always understand how it spread or how dangerous it was. Officials tried to keep the accident a secret. They did not tell everyone how bad it was at first. They blocked phone lines so people could not share news or worries. Police blocked roads so people could not leave the town of Pripyat. They did not want the world to know the full truth. But the problem was too big to hide. Important scientists were called to help. One key person was Valery Legasov. He was a top scientist who came to see what had happened and find a way to stop the danger from spreading more. He and others understood the terrible problems caused by the damaged reactor and the invisible radiation. 6. Leaving home. Scientists looked at the power plant. Valery Legasov was one of the people who helped. They saw how much radiation was in the air. It was a very serious problem. They knew the city of Pripyat was very close to the plant. It was not safe for people to stay there anymore. A big fire was burning at the reactor. It was burning very hot. The scientists decided they must try to stop the fire. They decided to use helicopters. The helicopters would fly over the reactor and drop sand and boron. This material could help stop the fire. But this job was very dangerous for the people in the helicopters. The radiation was very strong. One helicopter crashed because of the danger. The officials made a decision. The city of Pripyat must be empty. Speakers all over the city started to talk. A voice said, "Attention, attention! Bad radiation is coming to the city of Pripyat." People were told they had to leave their homes. They were told to take important papers and things. They should also close windows and turn off lights and gas. People were told this was only for a short time. They thought they would come back in just a few days. Many people got onto buses to leave. About 116,000 people left the city. But some people did not leave. Some old people, called babushkas, stayed in their homes. They did not want to go. One old woman told a soldier that she was more afraid of hungry than of radiation. Some young people also stayed. They hid in their parents' apartments. The world started to know about the accident. In Sweden, far away, people found radiation in the air. They learned it came from Chernobyl. The USA also saw pictures from space that showed the damage. News about the big accident spread quickly to many countries. In Russia, the government said there was an accident, but they did not say how bad it was. Inside the damaged plant, there was another big worry. The hot material from the reactor was very hot. It was close to water. Scientists were afraid the hot material could burn through the floor and mix with the water below. If this happened, it could cause a much bigger explosion. This new explosion would send much more radiation into the air. 3 men from the plant knew the area well. Their names were Alexei Onanenko, Valery Bezpalov, and Boris Baranov. They were asked to go into the rooms with water under the reactor. They had to find and open valves to let the water out. This was a very dangerous job because the water had high radiation. They knew they might die. This group was sometimes called the Suicide Squad. But they went into the dark, dangerous place. They found the valves and opened them. They stopped the big explosion from happening. Some stories later said these men died quickly, but this was not true. They lived for a long time after doing this brave thing. 7. Cleaning up danger. After the big explosions, there was a new danger. The hot reactor core was burning. People were afraid it could melt down through the floor. If it reached the groundwater, it could poison the water for many people far away. This was a very serious problem. To try and stop this, teams of workers called miners came to Chernobyl. They had a very difficult and dangerous job. They had to dig a long tunnel deep under the damaged reactor building. It was very hot work in the tunnels, and they had to wear special protection. About 400 miners worked hard on this task. Next, the cleaning work had to start. There was a lot of very radioactive material scattered around the plant, especially on the roof. Experts first thought robots could do this job. They sent robots to move the dangerous pieces. But the radiation levels were too high for the machines. The robots broke down very quickly. Since robots could not do it, people had to. Many workers were called to help. These people became known as liquidators. Over time, hundreds of thousands of people worked as liquidators. They did the dangerous cleanup work. They wore some protective clothes, but it was often not enough. Places like the roof were extremely dangerous. Workers could only stay there for a very short time, sometimes less than 2 minutes, because of the high radiation. Alexander Yuvchenko, who was there on the night of the accident, got very ill. He was in the hospital for a long time. His hair fell out, and his skin was badly burned by radiation. He had painful injuries on his body where he was exposed. Many of his friends who were with him died from sickness. But Alexander was strong, and he survived after much treatment. Even after they got better and left the hospital, many survivors faced new problems. People in their towns and cities were often afraid of them. They thought the radiation sickness could spread like a disease. This was not true. Radiation sickness is not contagious after cleaning, but this fear made people avoid the survivors. They were sometimes treated badly and felt alone for many years. The government also began to investigate the accident. They looked for who was responsible. At first, they mostly said the workers at the plant were to blame. Some managers and engineers went to prison for the accident. However, many people knew that problems with the reactor's design and rules also played a big part in causing the disaster. 8. What happened next? After the accident, the world learned more about what happened. Scientist Valery Legasov knew the full story. He recorded his thoughts on tape before he died 2 years later. He wanted the truth to be known. The disaster had a big cost for people. Many workers and firefighters became very sick quickly from the radiation. About 31 people died soon after because of this very bad sickness. Over time, more people got sick from the radiation exposure. Scientists think that around 4,000 people died later from cancer because of the accident. To cover the damaged reactor number 4, workers built a very large structure. It was made of concrete and steel. This big cover was called the sarcophagus. Its job was to stop more radiation from coming out into the air. A large area around the power plant became empty of people. It was called the exclusion zone. This zone covered a big area, about 1,000 square miles or 2,600 square kilometers. People could not live there anymore because of the radiation. Houses and towns like Pripyat were left empty. Surprisingly, nature started to return to the exclusion zone. Animals like wolves, bears, and deer began to live in the empty towns and forests. They lived there because people were gone, even with the radiation present. The Chernobyl accident changed how many people thought about nuclear power plants. People saw that accidents could be very dangerous. This made some countries stop building new nuclear power plants or think more carefully about safety. The memory of Chernobyl is still important today. It teaches lessons about technology, safety, and telling the truth. What do you think was the most surprising thing that happened after the accident?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like. write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.